Hey folks, welcome back to Unit 2. I'm putting this video together because I want to touch on a few important things at the beginning of the unit. I want to briefly touch on the concept of discourse. I want to touch on the prompt and the project we'll be doing. I want to touch on the schedule, and I want to touch on a little exercise. So to start, this concept of discourse. I know I asked you to read last week, and I imagine that some of you have a relatively strong understanding of the concept, although I know that it's abstract and it can be a little complicated. So I've given you an additional little video to check out if you're still confused. One of our classmates asked me a couple questions via email and I sent this to him, so I thought I'd make it available to everyone. And also let me give you a little example to understand how we'll be talking about this concept or using this concept. At this point we can understand it as language and also other symbol systems, right? So that big D discourse. And so let's think of a very specific example. Imagine you're walking through the aisles of Trader Joe's and you're thinking about the discourse of healthy food packaging. And so you look around and you see patterns. You see the word organic on all of these packages. You see the word natural on all of these packages. You see non-GMO on the packages. You see fresh written on the packages. So you see how the language starts to construct this understanding of healthy eating. You also realize, of course, that there are certain colors, that there are patterns with regard to the colors on the packaging. There are patterns with regard to the images. So you see a lot of earth tones. You see pictures of the sun. You see pictures of nature. And so for us, all of that stuff counts as part of the discourse of healthy food packaging at Trader Joe's. We're interested in the specific language, organic, and we're also interested in some of those symbols that play a role. So I hope that little example clarifies just a bit. Now, let's talk about the project specifically. I know that last week I gave you access to the prompt. And the good news is this. This project is very organized. You can see here I've given you kind of 6 steps to consider, although I think I can even clarify a little bit more. And so along with the prompt, I'm giving you access to this document. And this document here is kind of the magic document, the cheat sheet, if you will. What I've done is I've organized all of the different components of the project. And so at the very beginning here, I've provided a template thesis. And if we look at it, we can see that this template thesis actually covers these 6 points here. And so the first part of the thesis, the blue part here, gives me an understanding of the patterns and the conventions that you find. The yellow part here gives me an understanding of the values or ideology or cultural narratives that you see underpin the discourse that you've chosen. And the green part here gives me an understanding of how you see this discourse fitting into the larger culture. And so what's going to happen is that over the next couple of weeks, we're going to deal with these sections of the project. And so it's not as if I'm going to say, here's this document, now hand me the project. Instead, and I'll pull up the schedule here, instead what happens is that we start slowly. And so this week I'm interested in you guys defining your discourse and starting to look for some evidence. As we get into next week, you'll start doing some analytical writing about the strategies that you see and some writing about some of those values and ideologies that you see underpin it. The following week, you'll then start talking about how you see your discourse fitting into the larger culture. So in effect, what's happening here is that you're building your project step by step, and I will be there to provide guidance and assistance and ideas and all of that good stuff. And so if you look here, what happens is there's actually 2 rough drafts. There's a rough draft that you craft for the first 2 sections of the document, and then there's a rough draft that you craft for the last part of the document, and then you put it all together. And so we're really getting into the beginning of the project this week, but the project itself isn't due until week 10, until October 25th. So we've got some time to work on this. Realize, of course, that The drafts are worth 5 points each, and so that makes the final worth 15 points. So 25 points for the whole project, and then we've got additional points for some of the writing journals and the discussion boards. So I hope that that gives you a sense of how the course will operate over the next 4 weeks. Now, finally, I invite you to begin thinking about doing discourse analysis this week, and we're all going to start working on the same discourse. And so you will see when you look at the journal that I'm asking you to go examine a specific website. And specifically, I'm asking everybody to hop on the GNC website. We're going to do some work. We're going to look for some of those patterns. We're going to look for some of those conventions here. And hopefully, in doing this work as a class and seeing how a paper would be written about the discourse of GNC, you'll get an understanding of the expectations that I have for your own discourse. So, I hope that this gives you a strong foundation for what's happening over the next couple of weeks. And if you have questions, let me know. Take care.